we're now going to look at the concept of creating a home page for graphics. So as we've seen with other PX pages, you can put them anywhere you like inside the tree structure. I'm just going to right click on config, create a new folder, and I'm going to call it home. And again, this is just a regular folder it's got a wire sheet on it and a property sheet. We could put some logic blocks inside there and do some wire sheet control. But I'm just going to right click, go to views, create a new view, call it home. And then again, I'm just going to resize the page to make it more in line with the other pages I've created. And then again, put the aesthetics in that you want it to have. So it could be just a background color like that, or it could be a pretty backdrop. And I'm just going to go and find my menu bar I created earlier. So file structure, px folder, menu.px, drag and drop that in, and then position it at the top. So I've got an empty home page ready to go. And we're going to do a couple of things in this lab. So we'll bring in a picture of the site, look at how that works. Then we're going to put some gauges in that the user can potentially update. And then we're going to embed a chart, but it's been customized in some way. And then we're going to add some navigation aids to get to the graphics that we've already created elsewhere inside the station. So in my file structure, I've got this images folder that we've brought in a previous lab. And within there, we've got the Tridium logo, which we used in the menu bar. And we've got the building outside home.jpg. So same concept, I'm just going to pick the image that I want. I could double click on it to get a preview, a pretty little building going on. But I'm just going to click and drag it in. And it's been brought in. And from the widget tree, I can see that this particular item has been brought inside a label. So if I double click on it, it is a label. And it's got the image source, the file images, the file name. But this particular picture does not have any options on it to do with scalability. So if I stretch this out, it's kind of, that's what it is. The picture is a very fixed size of so many pixels wide by so many pixels tall. And that is, so it's 500 by 350. But that is really all it does. It's not going to let me stretch that out any bigger. So if I've set my graphics to be scalable, which they will be by default, and then this page stretches out, right now this image is just going to stay as it is. And that might be okay for some applications, but if you do want it to stretch, we should maybe consider doing it in a different way than just dragging the image straight in like this. So I'm just going to right click on a canvas, go to new, and select a picture. So the picture component is just a different type of widget. It still needs to know about where the image is coming from. So I'm just going to go and open that up, go to images, pick that particular image I want. But more importantly, this picture component has a scale option, which is by default set to fit ratio. And what that means is that if I shrink the image down, it'll dynamically resize, whereas this one will just go to that size, but we'll lose parts of the image. And if I stretch it up, make it bigger, then it will keep growing based on the aspect ratio of the image to fit the page. Now, that might work fine in some examples, but you do need to be careful that the source media is potentially of a higher resolution, because if you do keep stretching it out and stretching it out, you will start to see a loss of quality in that source image. So it might start to become blurry or pixelated. It's better to take a higher quality image and shrink it down than it is to have a lower quality image and stretch it out. So I'm going to keep this one that's working more sensibly and just leave it there in the top right corner. So like I said, if you drag them straight in, they'll just be included in the label. But if you go via the right click new picture option, you get a few more options about the size and the shape and how it will stretch out and work on the page. So now we're going to look at how to bring some other components in other than just a bound label or a spinning image. So I'm going to navigate back to my plant room and just find a couple of points that we want to bring in. So I'm going to grab the outside air temperature. And again, as we've seen before, just click and drag onto the page. Then we can make some decisions. So we've done from palette quite a lot, picking a graphical palette. I'm going to go open, and I'm going to go down to the web chart option. So within here, there's two options. There's a chart or the circular gauge. I'm going to go with a circular gauge, and I'm just going to position this across on the right hand side. Now with these items, they do kind of show up in the editor view, but they don't always really represent what's going to happen when we're in viewing mode only. So although it's doing something, it might not be the complete set of visual or functionality we get. So if we want to really see what's probably going on, we come out of edit mode and it will do perhaps something slightly different. Equally, we can't manipulate these in any way in edit mode other than the configuration. As an example, I could select a point now, boil flow temp, drag and drop onto that gauge, and it will take that new point dynamically live. So if we do it again with a return, it will update straight away. When I go and refresh my page, that gauge will jump back to the original source ord. So I'm just going to do that again. Boiler flow temperature, drag and drop. From palette, circular gauge, and then it will bring that item in. Now, these gauges, you can't adjust them in any way in that, you know, if I want it to be between 0 and 10, it's blue, 10 and 20, it's orange, 20 and 30, it's red. Unfortunately, they're a very, very basic component. You can't manipulate the colour bands. What it will do is change colour based on the source point status. So we can see it's orange because it's in fault. It'll turn red when it's in alarm, purple for an override, and so on. But the gauges are free out of the box. There are companies who make lots of third-party fancy widgets that you can go and purchase a license for, but this is showing you a bit of a limitation of what you can do out of the box. The gauges work great for a dashboard. Electricity metering probably is the primary one where you might have lots of gauges on the page, but we're just showing you what is possible. I now want to embed a graph inside this homepage graphic, so I can navigate down to history, find the component that I'm after, and then I can just drag that to the graphic in the same way as we do with a point. Workbench view, select the chart option. There are other options in this list, such as a history table, so you could have tabular data instead of a chart. I'm specifically interested in a chart. I'm going to go OK. Stretch that out to make it fit the page. Come out of edit mode, and then the graph will load. And in the same way with the circular gauges, I could pick a component from the tree, whether it's a point that has a history extension or just the history itself. Grab the item, drag and drop, the graph will then update. But when I do a refresh and reload the page, it will revert back to how it was originally set up with just the single component in the graph. So maybe I want to build a special graph that does some sort of a comparison. So I'm going to go to the history view, and I'm going to grab my boiler flow temperature, drag it in. Same with the return temperature. Now you could do that from a plus, it's just faster to bring them in from the side. I'm going to go up to a config here, and I'm going to change the colours. So boiler flow temperature will be red. The return temperature can be orange. I could right click on the axes and set a range of values. So I might want to go between 90 and 10, and then I could lock that axis so nobody can adjust them later. The title here, I might want to change that to make it more descriptive of what's going on. And then there are a lot of other options which I'm just going to run through. So we can select a time frame. So it's currently saying today, but I could make it for the last 7 days, month to date, and so on. We can do a delta option. So rather than getting the recorded readings, we get the difference between the recorded readings. We can toggle a sampling command. So when we've got a history that's got a lot of history readings within it, the graph can take a long time to load and it might not look quite right because there's too much data to display. So by toggling the sampling command, rather than giving you an entire data set, it'll just take a sample of what's going on. Status and colouring, so I can press that and it will show me where the reading was taken. And again, if it was in alarm at a particular point, we'll get visibility of that. Now, my station's not been running for some time, and here's the live data, so I could click and drag over that live data and go and view it there. So I'm just going to keep coming along to 5 PM. Or I could reset the graph to go back to live data. And then in the settings cog again, we can change the colour of the lines, or rather than it being a line graph, we could make it a bar chart. So I'm just going to do that in this example. And then again, more settings. So we can define what the axes do. We can turn layers off and on. And we can configure how much data we want to sample. So this is doing up to 2,500 records. And then how to display that with more options as well. But eventually you'll get a graph that you're happy with and you want to take. So I'm going to take that as it is now. And within the graph there is this export button. Now we do have a similar export button on the top. And this export button on the top bar is available everywhere inside your station. So this wire sheet here, we could do an export on it and take the wire sheet to a PDF and then maybe include that in a manual later on. But within the graph itself, I'm going to use this specific export button that's embedded within the graph. So I'm going to export the chart, and I've got an option of either downloading the file or saving it within the station's file structure. So I'm going to save it within the station's file structure, and it's going to give it a name here, Rob's Pretty Graph. We could change that. I'm just going to go OK. And what that does is, within the file structure of the station, it now creates as a chart folder. And within there, we can go and view the specific chart that's been exported. And all the changes we've made to it will have been permanently retained. So I'm going to return to my home page. And then I'm going to get rid of the first graph that I embedded that's not really actually that functional. So we'll return to edit mode, right click on that component and delete it. And then I'm going to find my chart file, drag and drop it into the page, workbench view, chart view. I'm going to go OK. And then again, I might want to just position that in the correct place. So one key thing working with the graphs and the circular gauges is that you have enough space within the page to make it really functional. If it's a really small PX page, then things might just start to go missing from a graph, like the title or the legend, and it just doesn't do what you want it to do on the page. So now that I've brought those components in, I'm just going to let the page load for a second. And now if I decide I want to drag another point in, I'm just going to go straight for the data point. Now this one does have a history extension. Drag and drop. We can see something going on down here. And then I get this save option appearing, so I can permanently save that change. And then I could remove the boiler return temperature. Right click on the legend, remove from chart. Save the chart again. And then I only have the data that I'm interested in. I probably want to adjust the axes there because 10 degrees is maybe not low enough, but I'm going to take that as it is. So the graphing is very powerful. By default, just taking one component and dropping it on the page, it's locked and relatively limited. Building your own customized graphs gives you a lot more features where you can customize the colors and the look and the feel of a graph, and then retain those changes indefinitely. The last thing I'm going to do to this graphic now is to add some navigation buttons to get to my other graphics pages. So I'm going to select pump set where there is a PX view. So if I hold down Control and double click, it opens up in a new tab. I'm just going to select the folder, click drag and drop. From palette, then I'm going to go and select the Kit PX palette. And I'm going to select the hyperlink button. I'm going to tick the hyperlink option down in the bottom left, and I'm going to give it a description of where to go, so pumps. Okay, so you can again adjust those buttons. It could be a picture rather than a button, or a text label. You can do pretty much anything you like with it. Same with boiler control, drag and drop, hyperlink button, hyperlinks ticked in the bottom left, boilers. Okay, and then I'm just going to position those over there. Come out of edit mode again. Press the button. And then we'll navigate across. Now, I've not set up a way of navigating home just yet. On my nav bar in Workbench, I could press the back arrow. But I kind of want to make it complete where the user can easily jump between the pages. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and find my PX include that I created, my menu bar, and I'm now going to edit this. Pick my home folder, drag and drop, hyperlink button, put some text onto it to go home, and press OK. Now that will work fine, but what I could also do is, rather than doing it on this hyperlink button I've created, I'm going to use the Tridium logo as a mechanism to get home. So when I double click on it, there's no mechanism there right now of a hyperlink property, but I'm going to go up to this 2 squares and a plus, and I'm going to add a binding. So I'm going to add a value binding to this component. Now, I'm not interested in getting it to go and read or write to any component in the station. All I'm interested in is the fact that it has a hyperlink function. So I'm going to select hyperlink, drop down the little arrow and go component chooser, pick the home folder and go OK. So now save it, come out of edit mode. When I hover over this picture or this image, I get this pointy finger logo going on. Click on it, it'll take me home. Click on pumps, it'll take me to the pumps folder. Press the home button at the top, boilers, press the Tridium logo. So whichever way you prefer to make it get you home, you know, you can have a picture of a house or a home icon on the menu bar, whichever works best for you, but we're just demonstrating there's always more than one way to achieve the same level of functionality that you're looking for. It's just understanding what all the options are. And as we've said in other videos, there are literally hundreds of options when it comes to the graphics of how to bring a point or a piece of data in and represent it to a user. So this homepage is now practically complete for the minute, and we're going to look to move on to the next lab.